this is Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert, a NASCAR podcast. What a time out west in wine country as NASCAR makes its yearly trek to the road course of Sonoma. Xfinity and Cup Series would be locked and loaded as Sonoma marks the second weekend in a row that NASCAR would be racing at a street/road course after Chicago on 4th of July weekend. Drivers would be ready to make lefts and rights once again. Storylines for the weekend: Xfinity, SVG will be in both races once again. We saw the late restart him and Zilisch had. Will we have another edition of that? Or could Sheldon Creed, Riley Herbst get in the mix? Cup Series, Van Gisbergen is the favorite in this one, but the man that led the most laps in Chicago wasn't named Shane. It was Michael McDowell, and he finished second in California last year. Or could a past Sonoma winner of Kyle Busch, Daniel Suárez, or Kyle Larson make it happen? Interview with Xfinity driver and winner from Atlanta, Nick Sanchez. Yellow flag, green flag. Fast Davies bets. Discussions with Dave. Predictions for Dover, and so much more on this episode of Splash of Gas. As always, we're sponsored by Magical Travel with Dave, aka Disney Dave Weichert, my father. He will be able to help you with all your Disney and Universal vacation needs. He can be reached at DisneyDaveW@Verizon.net. Please make sure you follow all the Splash of Gas social medias for midweek and on-track updates. Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are all Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert. Now for the on-track action, starting with the Xfinity recap. Xfinity would get the party going Saturday in wine country. Shane Van Gisbergen would be on the pole once again, with Connor Zilisch behind him, making up the front row, something we would see a lot of in this one. Once the race went green, Shane would get the jump with Zilisch and Sam Mayer following. At the end of the second lap, Zilisch and SVG would be side by side, and Zilisch would get the upper hand and take the lead. 2 laps later, the two would be at it again, with Van Gisbergen retaking the lead, but Zilisch would keep the heat on him, staying on Shane's bumper. With 3 laps to go in stage 1, leaders of Van Gisbergen and Zilisch would pit, flipping the stage. Zilisch would win the battle off pit road ahead of SVG. Sam Mayer would take the lead and win stage 1. Shane and Zilisch would start on the row for the second stage. They would go side by side for several turns before Zilisch would clear Shane for the lead, with Van Gisbergen hot on his tail. 3 laps later, SVG would go back to the top spot after more bumping and shoving. With 9 laps to go in the second stage, Zilisch would go up front. Just such hard racing between those two, great viewing as a fan. Just like stage 1 with 3 laps to go, again the leaders would pit, flipping the stage. Brandon Jones would take the lead and win stage 2, followed by Justin Allgaier. Now for the final stage, showdown we all expected. Connor Zilisch and Shane Van Gisbergen on the front row. Who would come out on top? Zilisch would take the lead and start to put a gap in between him and Van Gisbergen. With 11 laps to go, Zilisch would have over a half-second lead on Shane in second. Can Shane get to the back of Zilisch? 2 to go. Zilisch still up front, but Van Gisbergen would give him a shove in turn 4. It would not work. Final lap, Shane would be practically on top of Zilisch in the 88, hitting him several times. It would all come down to the final turn, turn 11. Shane isn't able to overtake Connor on the outside. Connor Zilisch drives away, taking down Shane Van Gisbergen in the Xfinity Series. What a race by those two. Now for trivia answer time, this episode's question is, what set of brothers recently swept the Xfinity and Cup Series races at Dover? Answer at the end. Now for the Cup Series recap. Cup Series would get the show going in the California hills Sunday afternoon. SVG would win the pole, starting on the front row alongside Chase Briscoe. Once the green flag would drop, Shane would get the jump and lead. Chase would settle in second, and William Byron would be in third. On lap 3, Byron would get passed by Briscoe for second. Can he contend with SVG? Briscoe would drop another spot to fourth after Ross Chastain gets past him. AJ Allmendinger would be hot on his tail for the next spot. 10 laps in, Van Gisbergen would have over a 1.5 lead over Byron. Briscoe would get back to third after passing Ross Chastain. Lap 20, SVG would have over a 5-second lead on Byron. The leaders would complain about losing rear grip towards the end of the first stage. Shane, among many others, would short pit stage 1 with 3 to go. Ross Chastain would elect to stay out and go on to win stage 1. Van Gisbergen and Byron restart up front for stage 2. Shane gets the lead. Byron and Briscoe follow. 6 laps into the second stage, AJ Allmendinger in 5th would spin, but the race would stay green. Halfway through stage 2, Van Gisbergen still up front, followed by Byron and Briscoe. Chase Briscoe and Ryan Blaney get the second and third as Byron slips to fourth. 3 to go in the stage. Leaders of SVG and Briscoe pit. Kyle Larson goes to the lead, but after short pitting the stage and on fresher tires, SVG would get past Kyle Larson and win stage 2. Crazy to see that happen, but that just shows how good SVG was. Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch would follow SVG at the end of stage 2. Van Gisbergen and Chase Briscoe to start the third and final stage. Shane again gets the jump. Briscoe and Chris Buescher follow in second and third. The first yellow for incident would fly on lap 62. Ryan Blaney would be racing Buescher hard for third. Buescher gets loose and sends Blaney off the track, and he gets stuck. Bubba Wallace spins in the 23rd spot in a separate incident. Van Gisbergen and Briscoe on the following restart. Shane gets the jump, leading once again. Briscoe and Byron follow. 30 laps to go. SVG would have over a 3-second lead on Chase Briscoe in second. Drivers would start to take pit stops. 28 to go. Briscoe pits from second. A lap later, Van Gisbergen would pit from the lead. After pitting, SVG would be 7th as the rest of the drivers start to finish the pit cycle. 24 to go. Carson Hocevar is the last to pit. Michael McDowell is in front with SVG in second. Does Michael have enough fuel? That's the real question. 21 to go. SVG will get past McDowell as he starts to fade. Briscoe and Chase Elliott get past him several laps later. 15 to go. Yellow would fly as Cody Ware loses a tire. Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, Ty Gibbs, and many others would elect to pit. SVG, Briscoe stay out and restart with 11 laps to go. Buescher and Byron on the second row. Shane gets a great launch and again takes the lead, followed by Briscoe and Buescher, but they wouldn't even make it a lap. A stack up in the back of the pack would send Noah Gragson spinning into the field, getting hit by Ryan Preece. They restart with 7 to go. Van Gisbergen and Briscoe leaning on each other for the first several turns, with Shane eventually clearing for the lead. But moments later, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. gets spun into the tire barrier, bringing out the 6th yellow of the day. SVG and Briscoe restart with 4 laps to go. They lean on each other briefly. SVG gets back to the lead. Briscoe in second, Chase Elliott in third. 2 to go. SVG would have over a second lead over Briscoe. The rest of the race would stay green. Shane Van Gisbergen would just be too good, and he goes on to win in Sonoma. Chase Briscoe would be second, followed by Chase Elliott in third. What a win by Van Gisbergen. Quick look back at the predictions we made. Xfinity picked Shane. He finishes second behind Connor Zilisch. Cup, I went with Chase Briscoe. He takes it home second as well. Now for yellow flag, green flag. Xfinity, yellow flag. Sam Mayer goes on to win stage 1, but ends up 17th. Thought he'd be up front a little bit longer. Xfinity green flag, the winner Connor Zilisch, as he is able to hold off Shane Van Gisbergen in a great showdown. Cup Series yellow, last year's winner Kyle Larson was up front at moments, but he gets caught into some issues. He finishes 35th, expected more from him. Cup green, the man, the myth, the winner, SVG, 3 wins now on the season for him. Pretty remarkable to say the least. Now for discussions with Dave. Our first topic, when the Xfinity race was going on and Zilisch started being able to compete with SVG and get past him and stay there consistently in Sonoma, this question popped up in my head. Both of them driving for Junior Motorsports in this one. Did Junior Motorsports take something off SVG's car compared to Chicago? In the Chicago Streets course, Xfinity, Zilisch could get close at times, but Shane is just unstoppable. And that's what that car looked like as well. In Sonoma, towards the end, you could see Shane get loose. And the longer he would get through those longer runs, he would be. You know, Shane did win the 2024 Xfinity edition in Sonoma and kind of thought he was just going to walk away with it. And they're both teammates. So, you know, there was a little bit of hard driving we saw, leaning on each other, going door to door. At one point, we even saw during the race, when they were side by side in one of the corners, Shane gives a thumbs up, which you'd never really see. As a fan, I thought that was funny. In the end, everyone was dealing with tire wear in Sonoma, especially rear tires. I think Connor Zilisch being able to contend and beat Shane Van Gisbergen just speaks multitudes at how good Zilisch is on these road courses. He's been in multiple Cup Series races this year with Trackhouse. I've said both previously on the show, I think Zilisch is going to be full-time with Trackhouse next year, taking Daniel Suárez's seat. I think Zilisch is something special. And also, we've seen Shane drive the heck out of his equipment, regardless, early in the race, middle of the race, end of the race. The guy is always bringing it. And boy, did the two of them bring it at the end of this race, as we were just discussing. Every turn at the end was so exciting. Next topic, SVG's Cup Series win. What does it mean? As we've mentioned, going into Mexico, Shane was at the rear of the standings. And as we said in our preseason Cup preview, did think Van Gisbergen was going to get a win, at least one, at one of these road courses. He is 3 right now, and now sits 3rd in the standings with 17 playoff points. Was talking a couple episodes ago, how long of a playoff run can Shane go? I mean, the way things line up, if Shane can get to the round of 12, where the Charlotte Roval is in the playoffs, I don't see why he couldn't win that and get into the round of 8. Yes, he does have work to do at the ovals. We all know and understand that. But if Shane can get lucky, avoid a few wrecks, it wouldn't be out of this world if he made it to Phoenix. 100% pieces would have to fall his way and show improvements on the ovals throughout the rest of this regular season. Going to be very intriguing to see how far Shane can go. Now to our next topic. I didn't touch upon this last episode, kind of caught the story during the racing in Sonoma, but very cool. Eric Jones spotting for his spotter. Some unique news unfolding at Sonoma this past weekend. Eric Jones, driver of the 43 for Legacy Motor Club, who is spotted by Will Rogers in the Cup Series, would be spotting for Will Rogers as he drove the 70 for Cope Family Racing in the Xfinity Series on Saturday. If you don't know, spotting and spotters are a very integral part of racing. They are the eyes in the sky of the driver, telling him if he's clear, left or right, and specific information about the race. Rogers would go on to finish 16th on Saturday, but wanted to touch upon this story. Very cool, almost going back to grassroots racing, different drivers spotting for their friends and others. Jones was interviewed on spotting as well. He said he's a little bit rusty. It was about 12 years ago, he said, was the last time he spotted. All in all, thought it was neat and shows the true teamwork in racing. Moving right along in discussions with Dave, more news about Trackhouse Racing. They're hiring Todd Meredith. Trackhouse Racing announced this week that longtime motorsports executive Todd Meredith has joined their organization as its new president of racing operations. Team founder and owner Justin Marks confirmed that Meredith officially began his role on this past Monday, signaling a continued expansion of the team's leadership structure. Meredith brings decades of experience, having joined Joe Gibbs Racing in '92 and playing a pivotal role in its evolution into a championship caliber organization. And he served as chief operating officer there from 2013 to 2016. Now, at 56 years old, Meredith expressed enthusiasm about returning to the NASCAR Cup Series garage and bringing his experience to Trackhouse with their continued success. Marks added that all business, marketing, and partner relations will remain under the leadership of Chief Revenue Officer Andrew Lekanik. Trackhouse Racing has quickly become one of the most dynamic teams in motorsports, only starting as a single-car team in 2021 with Daniel Suárez. The team has grown to field 3 full-time Cup Series entries. We've seen how dominant they've been this year. 3 wins with SVG and the Coca-Cola 600 with Chastain. Owner Justin Marks is truly bringing in the top level and some of the most competent people in the sport to his organization. There's a reason why these people are coming to Trackhouse. I only think it's time in a couple seasons, maybe even next, that they go to a 4-car team and compete for championships year in and year out. Next topic was announced about a week or so ago that the Cookout Clash will be returning to Bowman Gray Stadium for the opening exhibition race in 2026. We saw this past Clash at the beginning of the year, pre-Daytona, that the Cup Series went back to the Madhouse, a track that helped NASCAR in the early years. From 1958 to 1971, Bowman Gray Stadium hosted 29 NASCAR Cup Series races. Over the years, many legends of the sport, including the King, Richard Petty, Junior Johnson, Glenn Wood, David Pearson, Ned Jarrett, Richie Evans, and Jerry Cook, all racing there. Notably, Petty secured his 100th Cup Series win during the '69 Myers Brothers 250 at the track. Was saying earlier this year, post-Clash, I thought the quarter-mile layout at the Clash was hands down better than the one they put at the LA Coliseum that we saw NASCAR go to 3 years previously. So happy that they are going back to Bowman Gray. We saw Chase Elliott win there this season. And most of the drivers in the field grew up racing on short tracks very similar to Bowman Gray, if not racing at Bowman Gray themselves. In the end, just thrilled to have another historic track on the NASCAR calendar. And that wraps up this week's edition of Discussions with Dave. Moving right along, we typically talk about silly season in the off-season, but there's some mid-season silliness going on. Starting off, what was announced this week, Chris Wright and Our Motorsports have agreed to part ways effective immediately. They even have Kaz Grala listed as the driver for Dover. Say what you want to say about Chris Wright. Kind of thought he did have a home at our motorsports, being full season this year, so we thought. Not sure if it was a sponsor or we will get more details on what was the final straw or what exactly went down, but this one did catch me by surprise. Two drivers making their Xfinity debuts at Dover are Jake Finch, driving the 17 Chevy for Hendrick Motorsports, and Raja Carruth will make his debut driving the 32 for Jordan Anderson Racing. Some Truck Series news for IRP in 2 weekends. Brandon Butterbean Queen will drive the 07 Chevy for Spire Motorsports. Now for more bracket time and predictions for the Final Four. Reviewing our picks for last weekend, went with Ty Dillon, and the shoe does fit on the Cinderella story. The 32 seed defeats Alex Bowman on the last turn in Sonoma. It was awesome, and he locks in his ticket for the Final Four. Teammates of John Hunter Nemechek and Eric Jones face off. Went with John Hunter. He gets it done. Ryan Preece, Tyler Reddick chose the hot hand of Reddick in the Toyota. He advances. Ty Gibbs, Zane Smith went with Ty Gibbs. He brings it home in front of Smith as well. Got lucky in this round. Got all 4 matchups correct. Let's look at our final 4 matchups. First, Ty Dillon, John Hunter Nemechek. When this format came out, was not expecting either of these drivers to make it this far, but here we are. I'm going to go with the 32 seed and keep hitting that. Give me Ty Dillon to advance to the finals over John Hunter Nemechek. Now for the Reddick-Ty Gibbs matchup. This one is really going to be where the money is. I think they're very even and should be a great matchup with both drivers in Toyotas. Reddick has a more experience at the Cup Series than Ty Gibbs. Gibbs has been really coming into his own, and we know what those Joe Gibbs cars can bring to Dover. Give me Ty Gibbs finishing ahead of Tyler Reddick in Dover. Now for our interview with Xfinity driver Nick Sanchez. Next guest we bring on the Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert, driver of the 48 Chevy for Big Machine Racing, Nick Sanchez. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Before we get into the recent action, last 2 previous seasons you spent in the Truck Series, driving the 2 for Rev Racing. Last season you rack up wins in Daytona and Charlotte. How do you think the Truck Series prepared you to contend this year at the Xfinity level?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the act of racing competitively up front for wins, right? You know, I think at any level you're at, that prepares you for at least the next step. And, I moved to the Xfinity Series this year, and, nothing changed other than the team I was driving for and obviously the style of car I was driving. But, obviously my goal is still to chase wins and do all that stuff. And luckily I had a great, 2 years in the Truck Series to help me learn how to do that.
Awesome. Sounds like you're prepared. Just as you mentioned, this is your first year with Big Machine Racing. Have talked about how strong you've been this season. How has it been working with everyone there and crew chief Patrick Donahue?
Yeah, it's been great working with the whole team. Scott Burchett has built an amazing team, and Patrick's been a joy to work with as a crew chief. So it's been nice, getting to know each other personally and professionally, and I feel like we've excelled in both departments.
Awesome. Thank you for touching on that. You always seem to bring it at the super speedways in the Truck Series. You were 2nd and 5th previously at Atlanta. You qualify 11th and were in the top 10 for stage 1 and 2. Had some fierce competition there late. How were you able to stay in front of Love, Capole, Amarola at the end there at Atlanta? Those last few laps are nail biters.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you obviously study in the week, you do a lot of film review, and you just need to execute when the money's on the line, and that's what we did. So fortunately enough for me, I have a great group of people behind me, and, every scenario that we were faced with, I would say we were prepared for. So in the moment, you just want to execute and do the things you know how to do.
Gotcha. Got to do what you have to do. That was your first win at the Xfinity level in Atlanta earlier this year. What did that win mean to you and Big Machine Racing?
Yeah, I mean, it's expected, right? I joined this team expecting to win, and they signed me here, wanting to win. So it's definitely, nice to get the first one out of the way. But, for me, it just motivates us. It motivates me to get more wins and, just keep on working harder.
Gotcha. Seems like you're in a great spot there. Turning towards Sonoma, you were sixth fastest in practice. You qualified 23rd. Did you learn anything about the car and the track during those 2 practice sessions?
Yeah, obviously we just had a 50-minute practice session to figure out the race car, and for me, I'd never been to Sonoma, so I'm just trying to build my notebook and learn the track. Road racing's not easy, so 50 minutes is not really not really a good amount of time to learn a track, at least when you're competing against some world-class guys. So, I think we made some progress with the race car. I made some progress as a driver, and we just put it behind us, put the qualifying effort behind us, and had a good showing Saturday.
Gotcha. Getting into the race there on Saturday, you short pit stage 1, then worked your way up to 4th before pitting towards the end of the second stage, flipping that stage like many others. Seems like your team made the right adjustments throughout the day. How were you able to work your way through the field for a 4th place finish there?
I knew I had a top 5 car. I knew I was capable of running 3rd, 4th at least. So, with that being said, right, I just had to be patient throughout, the first 2 stages and just work my way up cleanly, take care of my race car. And, obviously our strategy was to go for the best possible finish and be in position to capitalize if the front 2 had issues or took each other out. So, I thought the team did a great job on pit road, executing strategy. Everything definitely came together, and we were able to have a solid finish.
Gotcha. It seems like you guys had a great strategy throughout the day. The last 2 races after Atlanta were the street course of Chicago and road course of Sonoma. We saw the packages of the road course that Big Machine brought with Kligerman the last couple of years. You finished 5th in Chicago and, as discussed, 4th last weekend. How do you think the road course packages that Big Machine is bringing to the track for you?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. We've pretty much changed it 180 from last year, what Parker was driving. So, COTA and Mexico, I would say we had good speed, but we did struggle in some areas. So, going to Chicago and then even going to Sonoma, we just honed in on, the little key areas we needed to fix. And I would say we did that. And I think we have one little key element left to go. I would say until we're a lock for the top 3, I feel like going to every road course we have left. So, it's just trying to identify the things you need to make better in the race car. And just accomplishing that. And if you do those things and get better each time you hit the racetrack on a road course, I think you're just going to excel more and more every time.
Cool. I really appreciate the honesty with that. With the long schedules in the Truck Series and even longer in Xfinity, you're going to many different tracks. And I know there's sims and iRacing, but as a driver, how do you adapt to a track you've never been to before or have limited experience at?
I feel like for me as a driver, it's not even really the racetrack, it's the race car. Once you have a good feel for the race car, you could go anywhere with it and have success with it. So I'm at a place where I know what my race car is going to do. I know the packages my team brings on, short track, 1.5 mile super speedway, and now road courses. So I think it's not so much the racetrack, but the race car. So it's pretty plug and play. Any racetrack you go to, I feel like we're going to have success.
Gotcha. Thank you. Turning towards this upcoming weekend at the Monster Mile at Dover, track has a lot of character. Drivers tend to say they feel like they're really hauling the mail there. Any expectations and goals for Saturday?
No, I mean, for me, it's just another race, right?
Yep.
I have the expectation to run in the top 5 at the worst case scenario, and obviously my goal and expectation for the team is to win. That's our goal, and I think we're plenty capable of doing that. So we just gotta, focus on the things we could control and make the car better throughout the weekend, and I think we'll find ourselves in position.
Gotcha. Dover is concrete. Any concerns with tire wear compared to an asphalt track?
No, I mean, I think Goodyear has a good enough tire and good enough data year over year that, I don't really see any tire problems for the Xfinity side, so it should be all good.
Okay, cool. Thank you. You're locked into the playoffs with the win in Atlanta. How are you going to get the 48 into the Final Four in Phoenix?
I think just winning, honestly. Winning would be the easiest thing to do, I feel like, to guarantee my spot in the Final Four. But honestly, stage racing is a big part of everything once you get to the playoffs. And I feel like, we're one of the strongest teams in stage racing right now as far as points earned at, a traditional track where you can't flip stages. So I think we just keep on doing what we're doing, and I think we'll, hopefully be in contention.
Gotcha. Sounds like you have a really good plan for the rest of this year. Hope to see you this weekend at Dover, and thanks so much for your time, Nick. Best of luck, man.
Appreciate Nick's time. Always super cool to talk to a recent winner. Now for NASCAR history time. Dover. The inaugural race was held on July 6, 1969, at the then called Dover Downs International Speedway. Richard Petty claimed the first of his 7 wins at the track, leading for half of the race. He will go on to win 3 of the first races at the Monster Mile. 1984. In the first Dover race following Bobby Allison's record-setting 7th win at the track, Richard Petty answered with a dominant performance of his own. Petty led 129 laps to capture his second-to-last victory at the Cup Series, matching Allison's mark of 7 Dover wins. In 2013, those records were broken when Jimmy Johnson grabbed his 8th win at the Monster Mile. 2001. On September 23rd, NASCAR held its first Cup Series race following the tragic events of 9/11. The atmosphere at Dover was deeply emotional as 140,000 fans and pit crews proudly displayed American flags in a powerful message of patriotism. Dale Earnhardt Jr. will go on to win that race. 2007. In just his second full-time season at the NASCAR Cup Series, Martin Truex Jr. made a major statement by earning his first career Cup Series win. Dominating the race, Truex led 216 laps and crossed the finish line 7 seconds ahead of Ryan Newman, who was in second. The race, originally scheduled for Sunday, was run on Monday due to rain, which started Mondays with Martin. That wraps up this episode's edition of NASCAR History Time. Now for the drivers to look out for in Dover, starting with the ARCA Series. We start with the driver third in the standings, and at his hometown track of Dover, LeVar Scott will be looking to be up front on Friday. We just spoke about him racing in the Truck Series at IRP. The driver first in the standings, Brandon Butterbean Queen. Think Dover matches up well for him. Lawless Allen always seems to be in the front of the pack consistently this year. Can he keep it clean? And can Lawless be a contender? Brent Cruz in the Joe Gibbs 18 ARCA car should be up front. Jake Finch hopping back in the Venturini car with crew chief Shannon Rush atop of the box should be fast as well. Now for the Xfinity Series. Haas has brought speed to Dover in the past at the Xfinity level. Last year, both current Haas drivers finished in the top 5. Can Sheldon Creed or Sam Mayer break through? A guy that should be contending is Carson Kvapil in the 1 of JRM. Really think he's right on the edge of nabbing his first Xfinity win. Look out for Carson. Ross Chastain is jumping into the Xfinity seat for this one. He should be fast in the JRM 9. Eric Amarola should be up front at the end. We know what those Joe Gibbs cars can do at Dover. Justin Allgaier has learned the ins and outs of Dover as well throughout his career. He should be a contender. Last but not least, the driver that has won the last 2 Dover races at the Xfinity level is Ryan Truex, this time in the Sam Hunt machine. Now for the drivers to look out for Dover Cup Series. You heard me talk about Joe Gibbs having success at Dover. That starts with Denny Hamlin, who won there last year, but also don't count out Ty Gibbs, who will be pushing it, trying to get out in front of Tyler Reddick for the bracket tournament. Kyle Larson has been on a little bit of a cold spell. Think Dover is a place he can break out of it. Another Hendrick car to look out for should be Chase Elliott, who was 5th last year at the mile. Kyle Busch has always seemed to have a quick hot rod. After 10th in Sonoma, can he get into the top 5? Now for Fast Davies bets. Xfinity, Carson Kvapil is plus 350 for a top 3. I think that's a good one. Cup Series, Kyle Busch is plus 275 for a top 5. I think that's good odds too. Now for trivia answer time. This episode's question is, what set of brothers recently swept the Xfinity and Cup Series races at Dover? Answer, the Barnegat Bay Clam Boys, Ryan and Martin Truex Jr. Now for the predictions at Dover, ARCA Series. Give me Butterbean Queen. Think it will come down to a late restart between him and Brent Cruz. But after what Brendan learned in Phoenix on how Cruz raced him, think Butterbean will come out on top. Xfinity, Justin Allgaier and Eric Amarola will be the favorites. But give me the one of Carson Kvapil. Think he's going to get it done and just have an unbeatable car come Saturday. Cup Series, Kyle Larson, that's who I'm picking. Believe he turns it around and wins in Dover. Brings us to the end of this episode. As always, we're sponsored by Magical Travel with Dave, aka Disney Dave Weichert, my father. He'll be able to help you with all your Disney and Universal vacation needs. He can be reached at DisneyDaveW@Verizon.net. Please make sure you follow all the Splash of Gas social medias for midweek and on-track updates. Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are all Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert. Hope everyone has a great weekend and tunes into the action from Dover. Till next time, everybody, Splash of Gas out.